What is a conference? If it's information transfer, then the whole thing's been unnecessary the entire time. If it's about being a member of a community, then get on a fucking plane.
Welcome to Everything Hertz. My name is Dan Quintana. I'm from the University of Oslo. I'm here with James Heathers from Cypherskin. James, I got a quiz for you today.
Oh, shit.
This was actually a quiz I found in the archives. Originally, I was going to do this when we did our live Norway conference episode, but we had some technical problems, so I had to skip it. But I was cleaning out some files today, and I saw this quiz, and the title of this quiz for you, James, is this a metal band or a town in Norway?
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So
Dan, I thought this was going to be terrible.
No.
I thought this was going to be a rancid, terrible thing. Wow. Okay.
So I'm going to name some names, and you're going to tell me whether this is a town in Norway or a metal band.
Okay, what if it's both?
I checked them, and unless they're incredibly obscure, they are not both. But I checked these things. Okay, are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, first one. Hammerfest.
Hammerfest. It is a power metal band.
No. It is a place in northern Norway.
That's awesome.
Isn't that the coolest thing you've ever heard?
There's literally a town called Hammerfest. Oh, I got the first one wrong.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, James.
But it was a good one. It was a tricky one. All right, next one.
That's brilliant though. Hammerfest. Go on, continue. I'm entraptured.
Okay.
Entraptured. I'm entrapped.
Okay, here we go. Next one. Solifald.
One more time.
Solifald.
Solifuld.
No, Solefald. Solifald.
Black metal band.
Yeah. I don't know the specific genre, but it is a metal band.
Yeah.
Okay, next one.
Okay, you don't have to know the genre. I'll just say band or town.
Yeah. Okay.
Like that's not doom metal, James. Technically, it's blackened crust. Go on, get on with it.
All right, next one. Lengsel.
Sorry, you're going to have to immediately spell them after you say them. This works much better written down, doesn't it?
Yeah, Lengsel.
You think of that, did you?
Lengsel.
Lensel? That can't be a town. I don't know the band, though. I'm going to guess band.
That's a band.
Okay,
well done. All right, next one. Krapfoss. Krapfoss.
That's definitely a town.
Yes. It's near where I live, actually. I have a laugh when I drive past it every day. Okay. Next one. Helheim.
Oh, band.
Yes. Do you know that one, or you just were confident?
Yep.
Okay. Coldbrann. Koldbrann.
Band.
Yes. All right. 4 more to go. Grimstad.
That's almost certainly both. But it sounds like a town.
Yeah.
I can't recall a band called Grimstad. Especially, it would have to be Norwegian. Yeah, we'll go town.
Cool. Done. Okay. 3 more to go.
Is that?
Yes. You're doing well. Okay. Hell.
Oh, just H-E-L?
H-E-L-L.
Oh, there's more than one band called that. So, I mean, it could also be a town. No, that's both, Dan.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, yeah. These were Norwegian metal bands, actually. I should have specified, given the names. Okay, 2 more.
Yeah, okay.
Ullevål. Ulleval.
Band.
No, place. Okay, last one.
That was a guess.
Yeah.
I guess wrong.
That's actually the main hospital in the country, so I thought they would have gotten the laugh from the rest of the Norwegian audience. So everyone.
Okay. I love the fact that the plan back in the day was to make me look stupid in front of Norwegians. I mean, we really should have done it.
We should have done it. Okay, final one. Myrkskog, Myrkskog.
Oh, Myrskog.
Yeah.
Myrskog.
Yeah.
Band?
That is correct. Well done.
Damn.
I think you got about 2/3 of those right. Off to a shaky start, but that was impressive.
I think no. I think I got a couple wrong. That's I don't know that band. This is quite specific to the Norwegians.
Yeah.
I don't listen to a ton of black metal. Some of these sound very black metal names. And that is, of course, what Norway's been famous for since the mid-90s.
Yeah.
That and herring, petrochemicals. Yeah.
all that fun stuff.
Yeah. That's surprisingly. I think I do a lot. I think I do a lot better at Sweden.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
If someone wants to make that quiz, Dan can embarrass me with that as well.
Said it that way.
Do we actually have anything useful to do this week, Daniel?
We do. One thing I want to talk about this week is in a lot of countries, things are slowly getting back to normal after the pandemic. The vaccine rates in the States.
I had that experience yesterday. I got a plane yesterday, and I would say the airport was 3 times busier than it has been in any other point in time. So rather than being low-key horrified in the partially empty airport, I went immediately back to being deeply annoyed at everyone else who was in the airport and acting normally. Their inability to perambulate and people chewing with their mouth open, spreading their bags across 3 seats, generally looking, feeling, smelling, and acting dreadful in every possible opportunity. There's something about the airport that is designed to suck every last vestige of class from
the great leveler.
I don't know what the great leveler where we all instantly become the scummy caricatures of ourselves. So I stood in a corner and made phone calls and resented everyone. But it was my utter misanthropy at airports notwithstanding. It certainly was a normal airport experience rather than a pandemic airport experience. So yeah, I back it, man. It does feel like now that the kind of large macro social events that happen, the places of congregation, are changing. Maybe prematurely in the US, but when has that ever killed anyone? 600,000 people. Ridiculous. Just I don't think we should talk about that anymore before I lose my temper completely. I'm not even in a bad mood. So yes, everything's getting back to normal, Daniel.
Yeah.
Or at least it is where we live.
Yeah. So obviously
not so much elsewhere.
Yeah. In some countries things are getting much worse, but in a lot of places things are slowly getting back to normal, or people are beginning to think about how things are going to change when things get as back to normal as they can be. And
true.
Earlier this week, we got tagged on Twitter by a friend of the show, Paul Zer, who tweeted, "Could remote work in collaboration with a local university solve the ECRs have to uproot everything and move to another country every few years problem?" And he followed this up with a clarification in that essentially what you would do is that you would stay in whichever country you are, and you would partner with your local institution. So say you were doing, I think there are 2 considerations here. There are some PhD and research positions which in theory you could do completely remotely. Most of the humanities, computational neuroscience stuff, which is working with big data, stuff where you're not collecting data directly. But for those circumstances, which is a lot of people, where you have to be in some sort of lab, his proposal is, can you work with your local university and still actually be technically employed or doing your PhD at another place, which would solve this huge issue, which we've spoken about. I think we even have an episode titled, Should You Have to Moving Away for Your Job, which is a huge problem for people in academia. So I want to talk about this specific proposal and other things that we should consider changing now that we're beginning to discuss things getting a little bit back to normal. So James, your initial thoughts on this working remotely using a local lab proposal idea?
Everyone's familiar with the pieces that underlie being able to make that decision. The fact that a lot of work is hands-on and immediate. I mean, throughout the entirety of the plague, our mechanical engineers have been at work. I mean, violently distanced under safety protocols that I didn't even grudgingly accept them. It was, I mean, people are in the office wearing 95s, temperature checks, everything's cleaned. We have UVC lights in the ducting in case anything's recirculating. It's a hardware company, dude. I was like, dude, can we set up UVC flooders to do this thing? How much intensity? Well, let's look it up. We'll plug it into the grid, and we'll put our own splitter in, et cetera, et cetera. So we just solved our own problems, which is a nice thing of working with engineers. Generally, you can solve your own problems. So anyone who has a job, anything like that, especially, there's plenty of scientific equivalents. Good luck getting your immediate biological experiments. I imagine people mailing tissue preparations and they come out as like a pink slime rather than a tiny little affixed piece of like rat heart or something. It's not going to work. Any machinery, if you're a physicist, a whole slew of chemistry stuff. Good luck doing field work without going to the field. That might be. Can you imagine you're studying lava samples on Mauna Loa, you're like mailing it and hoping it doesn't cool down by the time it gets there? A lot of science requires face-to-face stuff, but a lot of it doesn't. So those considerations are obvious. And I mean, the experiential part of this is also obvious at the end. Some people expect to move. Some people want to move. Some people move, and a lot of the time you slum it, but you have a great time. I moved and slummed it, and there were a lot of challenges, but I wouldn't swap them for the alternative. And that feeds into an environment, of course, as well. Who has the ability and access to do these things in the first place? What if you just can't? You can afford to go down the road, but you can't afford to go halfway around the planet, which is pretty fucking normal in a lot of places. Yep, okay, fair enough. Second part is, of course, what you're describing is it just sounds like a collaboration. You know, we're already doing this. We already work with people that we met at the thing and the place. You're taking away the social component of being able to make the ability to do collaboration in the first place. You go to a place, you meet people, things happen differently, et cetera, et cetera. So what I think is the really interesting thing at the core of this is how you set something like that up. And I can see substantial value in something that's like a partnership network. Because the primary problem here is, the primary proximal problem for people is the lack of access, right? It's thousands of dollars to move all your stuff and thousands of dollars to move you and your pets and your books. And, money travels a lot easier than people do. But the distal problem is, how do you set this up as something where you get paid by an institution overseas? That's frankly much more challenging than many, especially computational jobs. Yeah. Because, the component skill development is in the task. You're not learning to run the machine. You're learning to analyze the output. So how this would be facilitated is largely determined by, will University A have a template agreement that is easy to set up and can be completed within the required amount of time with University B, where the relevant tax treaties are taken care of, where the relevant employment environment is taken care of, I mean, one of the things that you'd find, especially in the US, if you're going from the US outwards, right? If you're earning money from an overseas company, the tax environment is different. And these practical concerns, and of course, could a university get it facilitated in 2 weeks rather than 6 months? Don't hold your fucking breath, right? Those are much harder to analyze than the subset, but fairly substantial subset of jobs where that's a really workable idea. Do I, as a converse example, do I like that better than the idea of giving students adequate resources to go overseas and participate in a program? I do not. Man, I was talking to my data science intern yesterday. What are you going to do when you finish your master's? Because he's done concurrently, and he's like, I want to see the world. I want to do remote stuff. Like, I really want to go here. I really want to go there. I really want to do all this stuff. Work from, have remote work
as a data
scientist.
Be able to
go and spend a few months here and go around and live on the planet. I mean, because this has fucked us off. But imagine being in your first proper job in your early 20s, earning enough money to travel, and then at the exact moment where you feel like, hey, this is going to be the oyster worldy thing, I'm going to go out, stride boldly forth, etc., etc. That exact moment, the fucking planet shuts down.
Yeah.
And you're sitting around your apartment. I mean, it would have shit me. It shits me in a completely different way. Now I'm rapidly hurtling towards middle age and have the general temperament of a infected hemorrhoid. It's different. But yeah, obviously it's going to be a toss-up. It would be really great if you were going to facilitate this. Here's what I'd do. I would pick a area of scientific endeavor where this works really well, where people are used to collaborating like this, where it was for like a right target of people who didn't want to move or go somewhere obscure, where skill transfer is possible digitally. And then I would try and facilitate a single scheme, maybe between 2 universities or a group of universities, or like just the Russell universities and everyone else, et cetera, where that's possible. Because there's actually a surprising amount to figure out when it comes to how could this happen. And you're talking about, I'm here, but I'm not employed here, I'm employed there, and they technically pay me. How does the currency work? Like, do you sign up as an internal employee even if you're not there? How does it or does it you turn out to be a contractor or something because you're full-time employed, something? Imagine you'd move to, I imagine the complications if you'd moved to the US and then you didn't want to move back out somewhere else. So you were here to be employed on a visa that meant you were employed here. Yeah?
Yeah.
And then you got a full-time job that was overseas paid by someone else. That couldn't work. The money would have to come here, and I'm sure there's lots of equivalent visa status. The money would have to come to the institution of record, would have to change, basically. So I would like anything like this. I mean, the first thing you want to do is tell me anything else. Yeah, I've said this in a lot of different other contexts. The first thing you want to do is make it work. And in making it work, you'll figure out what you can or can't do. Having it available as an option to, people who don't have access, you could democratize an area or a field quite well. It's cool. It's just, like most things that are expressed briefly, it's difficult to open the option. A gang of senior professors at a university, because, they all fucking listen to this podcast. No!
All
a gang of senior professors could do serious damage in the right area with the right approach. Yeah? If you come up with a shared employment, legal, etc. framework for doing it, it's got legs. But look, like most ideas, I don't think there's a lot of commercial value in that.
It's expensive.
But like most ideas, it requires a lot of doing, and it requires a lot of doing and attention being paid to the precise things that most people got into academia to avoid. Sorry.
Well, practically the first thing that came to mind was that this is quite possible within Europe because most of the countries have
Good point.
tax treaties that they're not easy, but they're more straightforward. We are actually doing this exact same thing at the University of Oslo, where people cannot come into the country. And so we have actually hired a number of people. These people in these circumstances are all based within Europe who are employed by us. And we had to get all the tax stuff sorted, all the social security stuff. It wasn't easy, but it was possible. We had to pay a bit of money for it, but we made it happen. And as a result, these people are at home, wherever they are in Europe, and they are still working for us. So it's possible in that context. But I think these things are already happening, but a little bit more casually. I've heard a few circumstances of people which have basically said, you know, I want to continue working in my home country. I want to be employed by this other country. And they speak to the local institution. They've basically got a handshake agreement going, hey, can I come in and have some office space and just, you know, just the intellectual sort of environment of hanging out with other people within my same field. And there's essentially a handshake agreement that the PI of that lab gets co-authored on the papers. So that is the agreement there. There's nothing when it comes to sort of, I mean, obviously all the tax stuff is sorted. When it comes to the actual university, it is that sort of agreement. So these things are already happening in some regard. So nothing is super formalized, but that's already happening. But and the other thing that I like is something that's popping up in a lot of places are these co-working spaces. Yeah.
Go on.
Yeah, so you have these co-working spaces typically for tech workers, and this is quite popular for people who are working from home. So one thing which could be interesting, particularly for more cities that are academic hubs, is having a co-working space where you can fill the gap. Some people just don't like. My wife did an internal survey with her work with like 200 employees, and they were basically looking at, do you prefer working at home or do you prefer going to the office? And the majority of people obviously preferred working from home, but there is a subset of people that actually prefer working in the office. So whether it's because you were distracted or you just want to get out of the house or whatever. So there is that need there. So, but the other point is having that kind of those, just being around other people and having sounding boards. And of course you can say, we've got Teams, we've got Slack, but it's not quite the same as being in person. So having like almost
it's not. And you don't, I mean, this is part of a much broader conversation that is job and industry and country and culture specific in any given circumstance, at which people, I mean, there's all these articles now. Oh, it's time to return to work. Oh, we're never returning to work. Shut the fuck up. It's incredibly contextually dependent. It depends on who runs the organization. Some people really value the internal culture of an organization that's changed when people are around each other. Yeah? And that will never happen the same way digitally. And some people couldn't give a fuck. For others, very important. And that goes for both the people who are trying to set something like that and the people who participate in something like that. Obviously, you know, in the academicals, yeah, given the organizations that they work for, otherwise known as universities, which are, let's be honest, regardless of their status, essentially for-profit institutions. So they're big fucked up companies in a lot of very important ways. Not in others, but in this example. What kind of organizational culture are you going to have? How's that going to shake out? Big shrug. I really need to watch that documentary on how WeWork managed to fuck everything up by essentially being a cult that leases desk space.
They're back apparently.
But yeah, look, hot desking is already a thing. You already have like visiting professors and people who are on short-term contracts and like work to hire projects and whatever else. So it's not some new concept.
Yeah. But it's more the concept of having an opportunity for people to get together when they can't physically get together in their place of work.
Yeah, so if you want to do something and help about this, here's another approach that's congruent to one we said before. Let's say that if you run an organization, if you've got an organization that could set this up, and they basically help you get all this ironed out independently, that would there's possibilities there. Yeah, it's also, it's possible to get good at this. It's possible to get expert. I guess you could have a small business that did that for universities, that facilitated that, something with a relevant knowledge of all the available paperwork, of which there is probably reams in the wrong context. Imagine you've got country A taking money from country B, and someone in country C doesn't want to move to country A, but they're going to be a full-time employee of A, and everything like this can get real annoying in a way that, like, people don't want to hear us talk about fucking accounting. The barriers to this are probably more administrative than anything else. It would be good at least to identify a list of people who are saying, I want to go and do that thing in that place, especially if it was a set scheme. Yeah? Something like an Endeavour Research Fellowship in Australia was deliberately designed for people to go overseas and travel. Like, okay, what would happen if we had the stay-at-home version of that? And you had really strong collaborator contact and proper intercommunication, inherent training, etc. That was a skill development opportunity.
These things are already happening, but I think the difference there is you become an employee of that other place, and the university sends them money, so it takes a bit of the complication out. But these things are already happening in some way.
Yeah, I suppose so. I don't think there's a big enough market to think about, like, let's get a SaaS business that facilitates this. It's
I do like your idea.
Look at my mindset changing now. Immediately thinking about
killing your own idea.
Make a commercial organization that fits into that. But also, a lot of that stuff is real boring.
I do like your idea of universities that already have a network. You mentioned the Russell Group, and every university is part of some sort of university network. For them to actually sort out a way of making and already setting up those paths of all the boring administrative stuff, that could be possible, because if you do it for one person, then obviously you have the template for another person. So actually that'd be really attractive.
You have a very precise template if they're within the same payment structure and they're coming from the same place.
Yeah,
and you have a lot of institutional knowledge.
If you're liking what you're hearing, there are a few ways that you can support the work that we do on Everything Hertz. First, you can throw some of your spare change to us each month, $5 to be exact, and you'll get access to a bonus episode every single month. There's also a $1 tier that will get you access to the Everything Hertz newsletter and the occasional bonus episode. Second, we've got a merch store where we sell hoodies, shirts, and coffee mugs, which is our most popular thing that we sell, so you can tell everyone that you listen to the best science podcast in the world. Third, you can tell your friends about the show by sharing links to episodes on social media. James and I love seeing these posts. For links to our Patreon page and merch store, check out the show notes.
What other things do you think we should keep now that we're getting back to normal? Or what should we throw away? What should get into the sea?
What's sea-bound?
What is sea-bound?
What is sea-bound? Toot toot, landward ho. Oh wait, the other way. Obviously the thing that people talk about a lot is conferences. And I am very much in two minds about making conferences a entirely online experience for a variety of reasons. One is, when you're there and you see something or you overhear something, you're in an environment, you're able to take in a lot more information in person than anything else. It's literally easier to walk around a poster session and look things than it is to be able to scroll through them. because you're recognizing everything at a glance. You hear what people are saying. People may or may not approach you yourself. You go to different talks. You actually socialize with people. I met plenty of people at a conference where I've been back in town somewhere and said, oh, hey, well, we haven't talked for 3 or 6 months, but do you want to have half a dozen beers and fight a cop next time I'm in wherever? And she always says yes. See, I was fucking with your preconceptions there. No, obviously not that. I haven't
fought a cop in about 5 years, mate.
It's not some kind of traveling crime show here.
You know, I was actually.
But also, hang on.
I got a mad tangent.
A lot of the people, fuck your tangent. A lot of the people who were saying that I was saying, hang on, just give me a second.
All right, go.
Then you can have your tangent. That's the first thing, is like, don't be so readily available to throw out the physical experience of being a place. And I mean, as might be expected, I never would have gone to, if it wasn't for a conference, I never would have gone to Florence. Yeah. I'm really glad I went to Florence. It's one of those places that, one of those few places that lives up to its reputation. I guess we're lucky it was in like a peak. The tourist season wasn't fully on. The second
like
thing is a lot. Yeah. One of the SPRs.
Yeah,
it's fantastic. I did not go to a lot of conference, but I went to the important bits, and I did go to a lot of Florence, and I was fucking charming. The other thing is a lot of the grousing that I've heard. In fact, I'd say probably more than half of the bitching has been people who are like, I don't want to fly halfway around the world to give my special talk for half an hour and then fucking have to leave, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's not a valuable experience in the first place. I mean, you're talking, my time is at a premium. Everyone's time's at a premium. Fuck yourself. Yeah? You're not as important as you think you are. Especially, I mean, also, I mean, it doesn't retain any other inherent value to you. You should have been suggesting this 10 years ago when it became possible in the first place, for fuck's sake. You know? It's more sort of, now people have stopped inconveniencing me personally. You know, maybe other people want to hear you, you arrogant prick.
Yeah.
So, you know, maybe they want to meet you. Maybe you're some kind of gatekeeper because we've completely fucked up whether or not we have any ability to move through academic hierarchies. Because, you know, the age that you get your first R01 grant in the US is now, I think, 85. I don't think you're even allowed to. You're not even allowed to write the application unless you shop in the elder care aisle at Walgreens. You know,
they give you a card.
So I'm very sensitive to people doing shit like that. And I mean, even when you're doing it on a shoestring and the arse is out of your pants, and you go to all the free drinks events because you don't want to spend your fucking train money on beer. We've been there. Yeah. It doesn't make it not fun. Assuming a very basic level of social support. I don't know, people are more fucked up than that. And yes, there's accessibility issues. There's all sorts of other things. I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean, part of me very tritely wants to say, like, move to a country that has just even the basic level of support for academic endeavor in the first place. But
just like your data science,
that's mate. Yeah, but that's just me being frustrated with the fact that there's people who are doing these jobs who are like, yeah, this is just, all of this is just impossible for me. So it's obviously a huge accessibility issue. I wonder if, I mean, the other thing is, if you're going to do this, when you put digital talks on a pedestal, it's really fucking weird that, I mean, all you're changing about, like, making YouTube videos is the fact that it's synchronous and it's all about the same stuff. If you wanted to, you know, you could just have a video edition of a fucking journal. It was basically the same as a conference, you know, where 12 new videos come out at the same point in time. Like, you're all content creators and you drop them all on the 1st of March and then anyone can watch whatever they want.
People are already doing this, though. Like, it's not, you don't have to do any sort of video production stuff. People are already very much used to the idea of, I'm going to do a presentation in Zoom, in Teams, or whatever you use, and I'm going to present that, whether you record it, whether you do it live. People aren't expecting crazy production values for these sort of things. I like this kind of idea.
Which is a shame.
Well, I saw
demand ring lights from your ugly professors.
Yeah, you can see them pop up in the eyes. I've seen some journals now offer the option of a video abstract where you can summarize your research. Kind of like, I mean, journals have tried a whole bunch of different things, like the graphical abstracts, which I think are underrated. People like to shit on the old graphical abstract, but I think they're actually quite underrated, and I like them. I think they're good. It reminds me of the whole 3-minute thesis competition where you're only allowed one slide and you can present and summarize your work. So I think the opportunity to summarize your work in that way is a good thing, and I think that's very, very underrated. But yeah, video abstracts is becoming a thing as well.
Sure. Well, look, we're getting into the weeds here, but I mean, what it comes down to is this an event for a community, or is this a protected point in time to facilitate information transfer? What is a conference? If it's information transfer, then the whole thing's been unnecessary the entire time. If it's about being a member of a community, then get on a fucking plane. It is, yeah. It would be nice and substantially more equitable for some of the larger events to be more straightforwardly facilitated. Especially because, I mean, a lot of stuff, there's conferences that are so big they fuck up people's ability to get accommodation in the first place.
SFN comes to mind.
Yeah. I mean, it's perfectly possible to do hybrids. It's perfectly possible to take all the administrative shit out of a conference and do it separately.
What do you mean by that?
Well, a lot of society things, like the whole backbone of the conference is a shitload of like meetings and quorums and things like meeting, you know. So sometimes you go to a conference and you see that there's rooms, and every single room has got 12 old people in it talking about how they've got some position on something, right? But they piggyback a lot of that shit, especially, and elections matter for that as well when it comes to society members and whatever. It can all be split out. One thing that I would like to see to be able to facilitate how these things are going to evolve is better services and information available for people who want to organize an online conference. Because there's a lot of AV and back-end shit that you've got to do to make sure that goes smoothly. It's still a real, I mean, it's probably a lot easier than trying to figure out what 12,000 people are going to fucking sleep. But that doesn't make it easy. It's simply you have a different series of concerns. So, I mean, I've done a few conferences and talks and whatnot over the last year, all digital, some of which I wasn't wearing pants in, but I'm not going to tell you which.
You got to guess.
And the differences between like how the AV was managed, every time it was a different system. Yeah? Every time it was handled differently. Some people were fine when I showed up like 5 minutes before the talk. I mean, I handled these things like down to a wire all day. I plan sometimes what I'm going to do 90 seconds between calls. I'm fucking busy. Yeah? And not pretend busy. Actual, real fucking busy. So when I show 5 minutes before the call, it's a stunning courtesy on my part. I'm perfectly capable of getting there 10 seconds out, I assure you. But some people are like, oh, cool, he's here. Everyone's here. This is fine. Everyone chat amongst yourselves. This will be straightforward. And other people freak the fuck out. I wasn't like connected to the thing 20 minutes beforehand. I'm getting emails. Where are you? I'm fucking right here. I'm answering another email, dickhead. You said 3. Yeah. I'll be there at 2:57. I haven't forgotten because we've exchanged a lot of communication about the language that I'm going to use or something. It would be nice for that to collectively evolve and to have one platform that emerged as a leader with guidelines and expectations and Like even basic stuff like the URL management over time. Can you set a persistent URL in advance, or all these things get dynamically generated fucking 10 seconds beforehand? How does everyone get it? Is it all managed through the same conference page? And you realize sometimes just how bad this would be. Really funny if it was a information science and network security conference. It would be really funny. But it's funny enough when people are like, oh Christ, digital resources are confusing me. It would be nice for a market leader to emerge and for there to be really good collective resources about what's the best way we can do this. Side note, you've heard, everyone here obviously has heard of Elsevier, as might be expected. Just say yes, Daniel.
Yes. Okay,
so Elsevier are owned by a bigger public company called Relics. Which is as the Reed Elsevier merger years and years ago. What they don't realize is that they own a huge group that is a group that organizes in-person conferences. So they took a huge haircut during the plague. Read exhibitions. Yeah, they run trade shows, and conferences, and things like that, and So I'm sure that the Elsevier parent company really copped it during them alone. That should make a couple of people happy,
but a lot of these online companies have pivoted to doing. Sorry, a lot of these in-person conference companies have pivoted to doing these online things, but there's still it's an incredible amount of eye gouging, of price gouging with this sort of thing, because they're charging the same sort of costs when essentially you can do these things. I mean, nothing is free. Have you got an example? Yeah, I mean, okay, I got a great example. Neuromatch. Yeah, you may have heard of Neuromatch. It's not a conference per se, but it is a summer school for computational neuroscience, and I'll post a link to a description of Neuromatch. But they actually published a paper came out today in Trends in Cognitive Sciences, or came out a few days ago, which is explaining what they were doing. And it's essentially a 3-week computational neuroscience summer school. And from what I remember, the cost is free or very, very cheap. Like I'm talking like $20, $30, and that essentially is paying for the hosting. And all the stuff they're doing is using free online tools, a mixture of free online tools for doing this teaching and communication. And of course, there's a lot of volunteers doing doing all the legwork for this kind of stuff. But the reviews from people who have done it have just been incredible. Yeah. And people have been absolutely loving it as a way. I think my PhD student is going to do it next year. It looks fantastic, and all I hear is good things about it. So I'll post a link to the paper, which is describing lessons from Neuromatch and how they were able to actually build. It got so big they were able to have tutorial groups in Arabic, Farsi, French, German, Greek, Hebrew, Hindi, Italian, Mandarin, Portuguese, Turkish, Spanish, a whole bunch of stuff. And yeah, okay, so I found it. The registration fee for this 3-week workshop was $100. Yeah. And they even
now that's value for money.
That is value for money. And they adjusted the fee based on national median wage differences. That's amazing. So what is $100? What is the $100 equivalent in Turkey?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
How good is that?
Use the Big Mac index. Love it.
Yeah, the Big Mac index. And this Neuromatch demonstrates that it is possible to run these sorts of events using online technologies with a small cost, with a reasonable cost. It costs money to host data and host servers and throw video and pixels around the internet. So this plus a community. But all this is, look, one thing I always hear about, we need conferences because it supports societies, is that these societies already have these communities. So rather than these societies paying other companies like Read Events to spend exorbitant amounts of money to run these conferences, which means the registrations are so expensive that people can't even come, why not shift those volunteer hours to actually running these online things like Neuromatch? It's totally possible.
Well, Dan, there's a huge fallacy in what you just said. I mean, is there societies out there going, we do need to have conferences and charge lots of money because it's very expensive. You're talking about the difference between net and gross, and if the thing just got a whole lot fucking cheaper, keep your margin and cut your base. Let's say we have $1,000. It costs. We have a really expensive conference. I don't know. We hold it on the top of a fucking hill where the pathway up is coated in platinum. I don't give a shit. So we have $1,000 conference. And from that, we have a $700 base that we're spending, and then we have a $300 of profit. Right? So the $300 is your profit, and the other is your expenses, right? Okay, and if it's $100 now because we've made it digital, and you want to keep the same amount of money, it's gouging, it's keeping the lights on in the society, but you should be seeing a big fucking reduction.
Exactly.
Because you're not paying for professional services, you're not paying for catering, you're not paying for the hotel, you're not paying for the space, you're not paying for the security. Yeah? So I have seen a lot of smaller conferences in particular who've been real popcorn when it comes to how much does it cost? $50, $100. This hasn't changed, incidentally. I look sometimes at trade shows, things like that now that are relevant to business, and that has definitely not changed because the companies that facilitate those things, even though they've moved them online, the companies that facilitate those things have they have a profit motive in a way that the Society of fucking inverted nipple neuroscientists never will. So they saw the whole thing as an opportunity, and especially in a lot of the space, there's no competition because all of this is about really tight, interconnected networks of people who are in influence in a certain business. This is especially true in some of the kind of para-government space that I occasionally have to walk in. So, yeah, trust me, you're getting off light. They're still coming for me.
I would love to see a bit more transparency in how societies are spending money. So for me, if I was to say, okay, these are the annual dues, and these are the costs of the conferences, and if they just said in plain language, hey, for these conferences, we make 20% profit, and for that, 15% goes back towards paying for early career research prizes or for bursaries so people can attend. If I could actually see that, I'd go, cool, this is fine. I'm happy with this. But for some societies, it's just like you're putting the numbers together and you're like, where does the actual money go? Especially now that conferences are going online and charging essentially the same amount. If it cost 20% less to run it online than it did to run it in person, then the cost should be 20% less accordingly. If you still want to support society, but I don't know. I want to see more transparency because for a lot of societies that I've sort of been to conferences and I'm just like, gee, this isn't worth it. It's not very clear what they're actually. Other societies are fantastic in terms of what they do to support people who can't afford to come to conferences, to increase the diversity of people in that particular field and for the actual stuff that they're doing. But others, I'm just like, I just don't see the value in that. So more transparency, I think, would really help because right now there isn't a bunch when you actually look at a lot of these websites.
Yeah, it would. And even if they're non-profits, which a lot of these are, that specific level of accounting is not available as a public disclosure thing. So, I mean, it would be interesting, but, I mean, Dan, you've got to... Not a lot of people are going to care Not a lot of people are going to read that. It's just us, really. But I think that's just because we've made this space for ourselves where we complain a lot and then start getting curious about the structure of the things we suddenly feel compelled to complain about. We've made our own bed of nails here.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll be back again soon. In a couple of weeks. This is one of those weird months where there's 5 Mondays.
Oh, 5 Monday months? Yes,
Monday
it is,
months,
because
so-
the 31st is a Monday.
Yes.
Well. So we'll see you in a while.
It will be 3 weeks.
Take care of yourself, get your vaccine, and punch a nun. No, don't do that. Don't do that. I mean, be nice to your mum.
That's the one. See you later, everyone.